Welcome to another episode of WorldView, the foreign policy show from Hindustan Times. And we have a very special guest with us today, Maya Mirchandani, a senior fellow from the Observer Research Foundation. And we're going to take a close look at something Maya tracks quite closely, and that is the relations between India and Bangladesh. Basically, over the last few years, especially since Sheikh Hasina became Prime Minister, things have been pretty good.
That's right. And in fact, I think if you look at over the last maybe 5 to 8 years of India-Bangladesh ties, the boundary was settled, the enclaves were exchanged between India and Bangladesh. That was decided. The only real sticking point has been water sharing. But even on that, there's been steps and statements made in the right direction, certainly from Delhi. And we've also seen, in the last few years between Prime Minister Modi and Sheikh Hasina, several meetings that have taken place. Assurances been given by Prime Minister Modi to the Bangladeshi regime about the importance of Bangladesh as a strategic neighbor, as an important partner in the region. So things have been rather positive for a while, but we're seeing a marked shift in the tone coming from Dhaka in the last few weeks. There's been a clear shift in the tone.
That was going to be my second question. I mean, things have really kind of gone downhill since about October. I mean, especially first the fears in Dhaka over the National Register of Citizens in Assam.
That's right.
And then followed by, the whole controversy over the Citizenship Amendment Act. That seems to have really done a lot of damage.
Right. So first on the NRC exercise in Assam, and I think the fact that there are all these people who have been left out of the citizenship records of India, what happens to them? We from the Indian side keep reporting about them being, sent to detention camps, or their fate hangs uncertain. But I think the question for Bangladesh really is that if you as in India can't prove their citizenship, how can you assume that they belong to Bangladesh? Why would you expect that Bangladesh take them back? What's going to happen to them? And to this, in fact, we saw not once, but I think on 2 occasions that Prime Minister Modi had given an assurance to Sheikh Hasina to say that don't worry, nobody's going to be sent back to Bangladesh, nothing's going to happen to these people. There will be a solution found within the Indian geographical territory.
I mean, the word used was that this was an internal matter.
Internal matter, and so it's not for Bangladesh to be concerned about. So, what is it? On the one hand, you have the Prime Minister making those statements. On the other hand, you have this rising rhetoric about illegal migrants who have drained Assam of its resources. And that conversation was still restricted to a state and to one particular region. What we've seen with the rapid sort of legislation, Citizenship Amendment Act, I mean, in 2 days it moved from a bill into law. I think the concerns from Bangladesh are very different as far as the Citizenship Amendment Act is concerned, because what does it say? It's talking about 3 countries in the neighborhood that persecute minorities. We've seen Pakistan's track record on how it deals with minorities. We've seen in the past Afghanistan's track record on how it deals with minorities. Certainly in the Taliban years, things have been different after that. Bangladesh is turning around and saying, why are you clubbing us with Pakistan?
Yeah, this is something that I've heard from a lot of Bangladeshi diplomats. I mean, they say we are your best friend in the neighborhood. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's probably the friendliest country right now in the neighborhood. And they say that, why are you talking about pushing people back? I mean, this is something they say in private conversations. And also that how it's getting very difficult for them to explain this to people back at home.
So pushing people back is one part of the conversation, and that's a real conversation for Dhaka, because, for a country, as far as its economic indicators, its trade indicators, Bangladesh is doing pretty well. And we had, I think it was Muazzam Ali, now the late Muazzam Ali, tragic news of him having passed away, who had, said things like, why would anybody from Bangladesh want to come and settle in India? They'd rather go to Europe, they'd rather go to other parts of the world. What does India have to give? Dhaka's indicators, Bangladesh's indicators are very good. So that's one part of the story, is that why would Bangladesh take them back? But I think the concerns over this bill, the act and the way it was framed, and the perception of especially Pakistan, as a country which has been inimical to India from its birth in 1947. You know, the stories about cross-border terrorism, the incidents, the kind of tensions in South Asia because of India-Pakistan conflict. Bangladesh is saying that they've been on India's side. Why is Bangladesh being clubbed with a country that is, for all practical purposes, a sworn enemy of India? Bangladesh does not have any such ill will. And apart from the real issues of what's going to happen to these people, why would Bangladesh take them back, it's also a perception. Does India really perceive Bangladesh as a threat?
Yeah, and also, you know, the fact is Bangladesh has taken several steps that have actually helped India counter the terrorist groups in the northeast.
That's right. And this we've seen, I think it predates even the last 5-8 years. I mean, you know, strategic cooperation, intelligence sharing, especially with groups that were active in the northeast, and then of course sort of the pan South Asian groups that were operating between Pakistan and Bangladesh. And you've seen a lot of that intelligence sharing. You've seen the Bangladeshi government even hand over people to the Indian
and I think
establishment.
A little bit of the fears in Dhaka are also due to the fact that it is hosting almost 1 million Rohingya refugees. And, you know, they kind of say that, I mean, we already have this burden. They've turned to India several times to kind of help with Myanmar to push, I mean, to repatriate the
right.
Rohingya.
And I think one of the sort of criticisms of this Citizenship Amendment Act and this idea of, pushing forward a nationwide NRC, it's the messaging that's going around. It coincides with the exodus of the Rohingya from Myanmar. It coincides with global conversations about the protection of the rights of refugees. It coincides with major concerns about, humanitarian violations in this region. And I mean, we've seen India actually send back Rohingya to Myanmar, even though the UNHCR has issued statements saying this violates principles of non-refoulement. You're not supposed to send them back. You cannot assure their safety. But you've seen this kind of rhetoric around the Rohingya. And you're right. I mean, Dhaka, Bangladesh is, Cox's Bazar is a small city in itself. I mean, just the camp is a city. There's, I think, nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees over there.
So just looking forward, we now have Harsh Shringla coming in as the Foreign Secretary. He's somebody who knows Bangladesh.
That's right, yeah.
And he has tremendous goodwill in Dhaka. He's somebody who's quite popular over there. So you think he has a major task on his hand, getting things moving again, repairing ties?
Yes, I do think he has a major task on his hands. I also think that this very reason was perhaps factored in when deciding who the next foreign secretary would be. We know that he has superseded some other officers as well. He's proven to be an excellent High Commissioner in Dhaka. He was rewarded with a posting in Washington, where he's battled some tough press in the last few months, but he pulled off a Howdy Modi event. He's pulled off successful, visits for the Prime Minister. He's fought off the onslaught from Capitol Hill on Kashmir and Article 370, not always successfully, but bravely. So yes, I mean, I think he has a tough job on his hands. I think it's important because he knows the region. He knows Dhaka, he has friends over there. Having said that, having the right man to do the job is only one part of the battle. Fighting the battle is based much more on who's fighting it, on more than just who's fighting it. What is the strategy he's going to evolve? Because at the end of the day, the concerns from Dhaka are of mistrust, are of painting Bangladesh as the enemy, and whether or not that's coming necessarily from the government or from the center, we know that functionaries, members, affiliates of the ruling party speak very often in different voices. So it's one thing for the center to be saying something, but what's the message going out to all the supporters? And I think Dhaka is watching both.
Yeah. So clearly, I mean, both the Foreign Secretary and the foreign policy establishment in Delhi will have the work cut out for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Maya, pleasure having you on the show. I hope we'll have you back again sometime soon.